What's up, guys? Welcome into this special edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. We're going to go live today because this is our last, and we'll go live this Tuesday and next Tuesday prior to signing day. Signing day is 8 days away. Texas Longhorns class is ranked 4 in the country, so I'm going to talk about that. There's Dan's comment. I'm going to go through those scenarios, what it would take for Texas to finish 3, 2, and there's a possibility the number 1 class. Everything's still on the table for Texas, depending on how they finish this thing up. But our sponsor today is Mark Saunders, Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. So thank you to Mark Saunders for always being the sole sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown. When you're looking for one insurance agent to take care of all your stuff, all of it, home, boat, RV, ATV, all of it, everything you need. That is Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. If you're in the Austin or Round Rock area or the entire state of Texas, Texas alum Mark Saunders has got you covered. 512-218-8571. So I'm going to start today. I'm going to answer all you guys' questions today. We're going to be here for about 40, 45 minutes. But I'm going to start with this, kind of the overview of where this Texas class is at. Texas has the number 4 ranked class in the country. In my estimation, and it's around there, whether people have it 4 or 5. I think it's 4 right now. And there's going to be a lot of things at play. This will be Texas won't strike out all the guys left. So, this is going to be the 4th straight top 5 class for Steve Sarkisian in Texas, which is that's a hat tip to start because that's when you get into the rarefied era of recruiting is when you start stacking these top 5 level classes. But the key thing here, there's 2 pieces to recruiting classes. It's what's left, where can you finish, and are you filling your needs? And the Joseph Mbaktu commitment on Saturday puts Texas really, really close to filling all those needs they needed to in this recruiting class. That defensive line having 2 guys committed in Josiah Sharman, Myron Charles, now adding Joseph Mbaktu to that group. You're 3 guys. You've wanted 4, but you have 3 tremendous defensive line prospects committed. So what's left out there for the Texas Longhorns, really looking at one potential, one more defensive line, and one more edge guy possible. Here's your remaining targets. And there may be more guys than this, okay? But these are the 6 guys that I'm really focused in on right now. So on defensive line, you have Justice Terry and Nathaniel Marshall. Justice Terry out of Manchester, Georgia, kind of closer to Columbus than Atlanta, but on that interstate there from Columbus to Atlanta. Justice Terry, Georgia, Auburn, Texas. He made an official visit to Auburn last weekend. Chris Gilbert was at his game. This is the SEC slugfest for one of the top defensive line prospects in the country, as it should be. Closest to home for him is actually Auburn, Athens, and Georgia's second, and Texas is the plane trip away for his family. But one of those 3 is most likely to come away with Justice Terry. Texas has had good enough continued communication since that October visit that Chris Gilbert was out there last Friday. So we'll see where it all goes for the Texas Longhorn that's there. And then there's Nathaniel Marshall out of Fenwick area in Chicago, committed to Auburn. Again, look, these are all SEC big boy, gird up your loins recruitments. I joke about it all the time, but that's really what we're coming down to here with 8 days until signing day. Nathaniel Marshall, 6'4", 265. If you haven't watched the senior huddle tape, do that for sure. Nathaniel Marshall, he has I call it basketball feet, tremendous feet, body control, reactive quickness. They'll play him at X outside receiver. He plays a stand-up backer. He plays edge. He'll put in a 3-point stance at the 3-tech. He plays everywhere. Seen him in person Saturday. Probably 6'4", 255, 260 right now would be my best bet without putting him on a scale. But a guy that I think 3 teams are in it: Auburn, Michigan, Texas. From everything we hear, the official visit went pretty well from what we hear, enough that Texas is going to stay engaged there. I think it's a little bit of an uphill battle just because they hadn't had the established relationships that the other schools have had, especially with the mom, but we'll see what happens. Then Javion Hilson at edge. LL, let me answer this real quick while we're going through it. What is Marshall's best position? I see him coming in as a 5 that will end up being a 6'4", 305-pound guy long-term. So he's going to be that 5'3" type of player long-term. I'm not saying he can't get a little bigger than that, but asking what he is now, I think 5, growing into a 5-3. He's got that versatility like an Alfred Collins does for Texas. I think that's kind of going to be the player he is if he goes to Texas or at Auburn or wherever he goes. I think he's a 5 that's going to end up being a 5-3 long term. And then Javion Hilson off the edge, one of the best prospects in the country, set the Coco high sack record, which has been long-standing. I think he's up to like 37 career sacks. He visited Michigan last weekend. He's scheduled to be at A&M this weekend. We'll see, though. Does he go to A&M? Does he go to Missouri? Does he stay home? I think a decision will be final decision will be made later in the week. But I was at this game. This is the Rockledge game, man, and he was bringing it physically. There you see the little Watt leg kick after a sack or tackle for a loss. He was bringing it physically. This guy is all about player development. His NIL is going to be great wherever he goes. He's a top 40 type player in the country. But I think there you see the get off. And watch how he does to the sacks the quarterback here. There's a play where he smokes the running back. I was at this game, but then you see just the quickness. And he's a football junkie now. This guy, he's on the bus after a game, and he is watching tape. I mean, that's the level football junkie this guy is and how serious he takes it. Plays with a lot of physicality, a lot of want to, and a really good motor. I think Kenny Baker being part of this recruitment helps Texas because Kenny Baker's the pass rush coach at Texas. So I think that helps the Texas Longhorns in this recruitment. But again, let's see where he actually shows up this weekend. If he shows up anywhere, it's been scheduled to be A&M for a long time. I think there's a play against the running back. I was over here on the sidelines. I think I tweeted that out. By the way, so he was at Michigan last weekend. Let's see where he goes this weekend. Is it going to be A&M? Is it going to be Missouri? If he chooses not to go to A&M, I would say that's not a good development for the Aggies. But we'll see. 8 days away, and I'll be surprised if it's not Texas A&M, or Michigan at this point for him. We have some Michael Fasusi questions as you guys watch a little bit more Javion Hilson, one of the top prospects in the country. By the way, who does Javion Hilson remind me of? Barron Sorrell with more explosive pass rush. Now, that's kind of what I see with him. He's 6'3.5", 238 right now. I see him in that 6'3.5", 6'4", 260, 265-pound range when he's kind of maximized that frame. So I see a lot of Barron Sorrell in him with a big-time pass rush ability at the strong side end position. So if you're looking for comparisons, that's the best one I got right now. Houston didn't realize Baker was the pass rush coach. Yeah, Kenny Baker, I think that's one of the big reasons Texas hired Kenny Baker was because, he's good in the run game on the interior, but he's also a really high-level pass rush coach. That's why he was hired in the NFL, actually, because he is one of those young guys that is a high-level pass rush coach, and he does a great job there. So that's Javion Hilson. Michael Terry, as far as our other targets, I think Michael Terry, Texas in a good spot for Michael Terry. People are asking, when are these guys going to announce? The majority of these guys are going to be December 4th. At this point, we're 8 days away. I would almost be surprised if anybody jumps in before that, but it's always possible with a Kellen Wiley, maybe outside shot with a Michael Terry. But here's a hustle play there you go. There you see the hustle. There you see the motor of Javion Hilson right there and the physicality and all of it. And by the way, they're playing a third-round playoff game against Newberry, who has D-tackle Jarquez Carter committed to Ohio State, a couple other P4 guys. They're playing them in a third-round game on Friday. So Michael Terry, I still think Texas leads Nebraska there, but we'll see what happens. His birthday cake, by the way, he turned 18 on Sunday, I believe it was. His birthday cake was half Texas, half Nebraska, I was told. So pretty cool. I guess Oregon, no green icing. You're out officially if you didn't think you were before. So that's Texas trending over Nebraska. Kellen Wiley, I think Texas is trending big over Miami and Florida there. And I'll tell you what, Texas really covets Kellen Wiley. Even though the visit continued, Texas said, we still want you. We want you. We got a spot for you, in talking to a source close to that recruitment. So there's your 6 guys. And then Michael Fasusi. Drew Lockhart said wherever Hilson goes, he's going to be dominant. I tend to agree because he has the heart. He has the want to. And he loves the game of football. And he understands what football can do for his life. I think that's a big thing with Javion Hilson is he loves the game, but also understands what it can do for him and his family's life. So I really like the way Javion Hilson's wired after being at Coco twice, seeing him in person multiple times. Then there's Michael Fasusi. Everybody said we've had some comments in here. It'll be Oklahoma or A&M for Fasusi. There, Texas had some optimism coming out of that visit. We'll see what happens. I'm interested to see who goes with him on his A&M visit this weekend, assuming he follows through with those plans and makes that visit. The Texas visit was dad and sister. Let's see who makes that visit to A&M with Michael Fasusi. Still Oklahoma obviously still has his commitment. I think all three of those schools are in it. I don't think any of the schools are out. I don't care what people are saying. There's still communication going on, so we'll see. But I do wonder if his mom goes to College Station this week. We'll see that. Stone 3 says, shout out Roy Miller versus Alamo Heights. Third round playoff game. Absolutely. Roy Miller is a talented school down there in Corpus Christi. Alamo Heights gets by that game. They got a chance to make a big run here. So we'll see what happens. All right. So that's kind of where we're at. As far as the recruiting class, here's the breakdown. Matthew, leave those targets up so I can go through this. So Texas is ranked 4 right now. Okay. If they went out for Michael Terry and Kellen Wiley, probably going to be the 2 or 3 ranked class. If you went out for Terry, Wiley, and Javion Hilson, you're going to be 2 at worst. And if you're sitting there in that 2 range, then it comes down to, can you win out for one of these 5-star guys, Terry or Fasusi? I think Marshall will kind of keep him off. We'll kind of keep him on the list, but maybe the 6th guy right now. Can you upset? Can you get an upset win with those 5 stars? If you do, you're going to finish with the number 1 class. Justice Terry's going to be, his decision so interesting because he's a impactful recruitment in what's going to be the final class rankings for those that follow the final class rankings. Justice Terry will go to Georgia, Auburn, or Texas. Maybe outside shot Alabama. But if Auburn flips Naeem Offord and wins out for Justice Terry, they got a shot at the number 1 class. If Georgia wins out for Justice Terry, adds another top 200 player in the country, they're probably going to be the favorite for the number 1 class. So this Justice Terry recruitment, because of who he's considering, and those are 3 of your top 5 or 6 recruiting classes, that decision is going to be really impactful in the final class rankings. So something to watch there with Justice Terry. So again, time to take you guys. Oh, is there anyone in Justice's camp who prefers Texas? I don't know for sure on that one. That's actually a good question. I've not heard that specifically. So Q says Kellen Wiley's tape is impressive as well. Large, twitchy athlete that loves contact. I'll say this about Kellen Wiley after seeing him in person a few weeks ago. I think the in-state schools are messing up on him in Florida. They want him, but I'm not sure that's been the have to have him. And I just got to tell you, doing this job nationally for a long time, but I think they're making a mistake on this kid. If you're not all in on Kellen Wiley, I think you're going to end up looking bad. I said this morning on Coffee and Football and Kellen Wiley. Watch his tape, and it's on Quick Cut because he's not on Huddle. It's Quick Cut. It's the competing company, KUIK, and then Cut, and search Kellen Wiley Quick Cut. Watch his senior tape, and then go back and watch Derek Hall out of Gulfport, Mississippi, who signed with Auburn, went in the 2nd rounds in the NFL. Go watch his Huddle tape right after you watch Kellen Wiley. I really believe that's what Kellen Wiley could end up being as a player. Here's his senior tape, guys. If you haven't seen this, right tackle, good luck on that. And the running back takes the 2nd hit. But this is a 6'3.5", 226-pound, rangy, twitchy guy with a 79.5-inch wingspan, 10.5-inch hands. He also played tight end. He's a 43.5-foot triple jumper, 20-plus foot long jumper. As a junior in high school, by the way, played at Hillsborough High there in Tampa proper his junior year. But, I mean, this guy's angry now. He carries violence. He carries his hips through the ball carrier. This is a guy whose upside is really, really high. And watch, like I said, watch his tape and then go back and watch Derek Hall, his Huddle tape. You can just search Derek Hall Huddle. Watch his tape back-to-back with Kellen Wiley and tell me you don't see some similarities there, because I certainly do. Look at the ball skills. I mean, this kid's got really good hands. I watched him catch footballs in the practice I was at, just messing around before practice, and he's got good ball skills. He's going to have to learn to play in coverage long term. I mean, he's a young football player, but the skill set's there, and he's got the want to. And this is the thing. You bring him off the edge, he's a pass rusher. He's got that quickness and that explosiveness. That's why he reminds me of Derek Hall. If you watch their tapes, again, back to back, it almost looks like you're watching the same guy at times. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys, I'm going to get to your questions now. Andrew Venegas asked, and while we watch more tape, we'll watch some more tape, guys. Do y'all see French leaving for UF? I personally do not. I think Jamie French wants to be at the University of Texas, and I'm not saying something crazy can't happen. We're in the NIL day and age of recruiting, so I always preface an opinion by saying that because it's the wild, wild west, at least for another few months. When profit sharing comes in, I think the game's going to change a little bit. I like Texas' chances of holding on to Jamie French. Jedi Master Bevo's got a really good one. How many of the current commits are early enrollees? KJ Lacey, while I go to the Texas commit list here, KJ Lacey is, Simon is, both running backs are in this class. Ricky Stewart is, Jamie French is, Dalen McCutcheon is, Kalik Lockett is, Nick Townsend is, I believe Amari Winston is. I think at least 4 of the offensive linemen are. On the defensive front, Sharma, Charles, they definitely are. I need to double check on Mbatu, but I think he is still scheduled to be. Some of this has to do with you're trying to get those extra credits senior year. Edge, Lance Jackson is. Smith Orogbo is. If Texas gets Hilson, he would be. Linebacker Elijah Bo Barnes is. I believe Jonathan Cunningham is, but I need to double check on where he's at. Kellen Wiley is as well if he goes Texas way. He is a December graduate. He just recently got invited to the Under Armour game, but I'm not even – he may pass on that just to get ready because as a senior, if you're a senior, if you're a December graduate right now, you can actually go suit up if you sign with a team that's in the playoffs. Kind of cool thing there. Secondary, Jonah Williams is. Caleb Chester, I believe, is. Hicks is not because he just reclassed to 25. He'll have to finish through the spring. Grayson Littleton is an early enrollee as well. So, again, you're looking at 80% of the class at least that's early enrollees. Last year it was 17 to 21. You're tracking at right now, I think, at least 19 to 23, if not 2021. So Josie asks, what is your personal must get of the remaining recruits? That's a really good question, man. Everybody, all these kids watch these shows. So no offense to anybody else. I'm a big Javion Hilson fan. I think you can never have enough pass rushers. You've seen the difference in this Texas team with 33 sacks this year on their way to potentially a 40-sack season. If you beat A&M, get to the SEC title game, not out of the question. You end the regular season with 40 sacks, which is that 39, 40 sacks is kind of the goal, the magic number, I think, for a 13-game season. So Texas has got a shot at it. But I think Javion Hilson, I just think the motor he has, the fit he would be at Texas. So there's just something there with that kid. I think he would be a really good fit on the Texas defense in this program with the culture. I just really like him as a fit. Not that means I don't like the other guys, but I was asked specifically about one guy. Jeff has a good question here. A follow-up says, there is no longer a Longhorn network. Will there be live coverage of signing day? If you're at On Texas Football, there will be. We're going to have 8 hours of live coverage on signing day. Bobby Burton, myself, Blake Monroe, CJ Vogel. We'll have some guests throughout the day as well. But we're going to be live for 8 hours. It'll probably be a 4-hour block morning, 4-hour block after lunch in the afternoon. But we got you covered for 8 hours on signing day. All right, let me get down. Ryan Nelson's looking at 2026. Look at him go. Tyler Atkinson, Amari Latimer. I think Georgia's probably the favorite for Atkinson, but Clemson, Texas very much in it. Alabama in it, Auburn in it, Tennessee in it. We'll see when he starts trimming that thing down. But Tashard Choice has done a really good job. They've been on campus twice. Love the visit. Amari Latimer, I need to get a new update on him. I've really been 25 focused, but I know Tashard Choice is building a really good relationship with Latimer, and he's been on campus twice, I believe, since the spring. So Texas is going to be in that one in the end. Justin asked, do you think we'll get another corner in the class at all? I think if there was a wild flip scenario and it was somebody Texas really covets, they would take him. But I think if not, they're fine going to the portal. Josh Marquette has a good week. Kenny Baker established good relationships with the IDL prospects for 26 in Georgia. I don't know about in Georgia yet, but he's done a good job with Dylan Berryman up in Monroe, Ouachita Baptist. You're going to be battling LSU, obviously the in-state kid there, but Berryman has been on campus multiple times. Noah Clark from North Carolina had a really good visit. I'm interested to see where Texas goes on D-line in 26. I think when they get out in January, if they have January to get out, by the way, when they get out, I think where they go is going to start to be telling prior to that first junior day. So we'll see. Todd Howerton asked, this is a great question. Where do you think we land in the final recruiting rankings? I've been leaning to 3/2. That's where I've been leaning. I think Texas can get right in that area. So I think this has a chance to be the best defensive class I've seen Texas sign in a long time. Now, that would mean you close out on Hilson and Kellen Wiley to go with what else you have. But if they do that, man, this defensive class to me looks like a class that Nick Saban and Kirby Smart have signed for years in the SEC. That's just one opinion. Kyle Vodkas out of the 6. Are there any leans to Texas? I put up a story on ontexasfootball.com this morning. I think there's definitely 2 or 3 that are leans to Texas right now. Let me get back to the live questions here for you guys. Okay, this is a good one from Q. Do you think Ricky Stewart is a high-level running back recruit? I like his traits, but I'm not a professional. I'll say this about Ricky Stewart. Seen him in person the last 2 years. He reminds me very much of Trey Wisner. He is more of this sleek running back build. Almost at times you would think stronger wide receiver build, that 6-foot wide receiver build like Trey Wisner came to Texas with. But he's going to build it up into that 5'11", 195, 200-pound frame over time. But he's very similar to Trey Wisner with maybe half a step more speed. Here, this is the speed now you see. This is against Gilmer. Gilmer's really fast. These guys play really good competition at this 3A, 4A level in East Texas. These are fast teams. Gilmer was a state champion last year. Ricky Stewart, he's deceptive speed because he doesn't really pick his knees up like a sprinter, but then he doesn't get caught. I mean, and this is Jasper. These are fast football players now. Jasper kids can run. And what he does, though, he's got that burst to the second level. But you see there the body type. Very similar to Trey Wisner coming out of high school. But look, he doesn't really pick his knees up, so it's kind of deceptive speed. He isn't that traditional sprinter look when he's running. But what do you see? You see him running away from a lot of guys. That play right there is Trey Wisner-ish to me. I mean, those are the plays that I look at and say there's some similarities to Trey Wisner. Also, really tough kid. Has carried the brunt of the load, especially with Demetrius Brisbane out for most of the year. This is a tough kid. I'll tell you a story. When I was there this season, he was home sick all day, throwing up, had got food poisoning. What would a kid committed to a big-time school do? Stay home, stay in bed. Kid got out of bed, showed up at the practice that afternoon. Those are the traits I love in kids that are this talented. He's the leader of his team. He wasn't going to let his team down. They had a nice win Friday. He was sick, in bed all day for a day and a half. He got his butt out of bed, showed up for practice on that Monday afternoon. This kid's a winner. And they're still in the playoffs, by the way. They're cruising right along. We'll see if they can get back to the state championship game. That's against Kilgore, guys. I mean, these are for Fairfield, I think that was. But these are fast athletes now. This kid's not playing against slow players. So when you see people start to close a little bit of a gap, then he runs away from them. He's playing against good competition. Juan Garza asked this, Jerry, what is the realistic Marshall Justice Terrier for Susie? That's a really good question. That's a tough one to answer for me right now. I mean, these are big NIL recruitments here. You got 8 days left. There's a lot of jockeying going on, especially with Justice Terry. One thing I've always said about Justice Terry, and I could be wrong, guys. I've been wrong plenty in this business, been right plenty too, is Kirby Smart doesn't want him to sign with Texas. If you're the Georgia head coach, a kid goes to Auburn, it's expected. Okay, Auburn got Derek Brown out of Lanier High School years ago, 5-star defensive tackle from the Atlanta area, in the Peach State. Auburn's been getting guys like that for years. They're always going to get guys from southwest corners of Georgia and compete really hard in Atlanta. What you don't want if you're Kirby Smart is for a 5-star defensive lineman, one of the best in the country, to leave the state and go to Texas. That's what he's trying to avoid right now if you're Georgia. And no different than Texas fighting for those guys, but especially on the defensive line. Those defensive linemen are so coveted that one, Georgia will fight till the end. They wouldn't want that kid going to Texas. We'll see what happens. Auburn got the last visit. He has a Friday playoff game. Georgia plays Georgia Tech Friday, so he won't be over there for that game. Manchester's, I believe, in the third round of the playoffs Friday. Woodcrest says, yeah, here's the thing. If Justice Terry went to Texas, it would open up Georgia even more for Texas. I agree. And I do think this about the state, too. There were so many defensive linemen in Georgia this year. If Kenny Baker had had more time to get an earlier start on some of these recruitments, I think he could have won Walter Mathis out of Savannah. I really do. It was just late in the game. The first visit got canceled because of the hurricane that really knocked out power and everything in Savannah and affected the father's work. And then it just never really came together there. I think if Kenny Baker if he was in this position last year to get started on those guys, I think that's a recruitment Texas honestly could have won if they had the correct time. So I do think that Justice Terry, that would be a huge win for Texas, and Kirby Smart knows it. Let's see. Somebody's asked about for Madden for Ramo. I just don't see it happening, but I could be wrong. I think Notre Dame's in a good spot there. USC's been fighting. Jeff, super chat. Thank you. Thanks for the hard work for us fans. Come on, folks. Let's off them some jerky money. Hey, man. No, but just thank you for tuning in, and thank you for the support of On Texas Football. I love doing this with you guys, man. I love doing this, guys, with you. All right, let's see. This is a non-recruiting question, but Tennessee Longhorn, Thorpe, Finals, Barron, Starks, Downs. I do think Barron can win this award. Look, the Arkansas game was huge for him. If he turns in one more, if he has a good game against A&M, I can see him winning this award. I really can. I think Downs maybe next year, right? I think Malachi Starks and Barron more so. Now, I'm not saying Caleb Downs can't win it because honestly, he may be the most gifted of all three of these guys, like long-term all-pro potential. I think him and Starks are just really, really talented. And Downs is tremendous. But, if we're just looking at this, everything points towards Jahdae Barron. PBUs, interceptions, hasn't allowed a touchdown. I mean, there's a lot of things heading his direction. Obviously, Caleb Downs is a tremendous football player as well. Is it going to matter that he hasn't created the turnovers necessarily like Jahdae Barron has? And does it help that Jahdae Barron's a senior? I mean, you saw Anthony Hill not make the finals for the Butkus. I think he was a year away. I think there's some really good older linebackers there. It wouldn't shock me if Jahdae won the award. And for Texas, I hope that does happen. The Downs pick 6, obviously, has got that. Chris Young, any news on Diabell's health? I do not have anything on that. I'm kind of waiting for the family or American Heritage to kind of release something there on their own timeline. I don't have an update on Diabell. I think the initial returns were good, but let's see what the family has to say. Rudy Serta, $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. Jam Miller and Kendrick Law are very underrated. Could you see them portaling in Texas? We could use that speed. I don't know on that, but I do think, look, 2 guys that Texas wanted badly out of high school. Obviously, Jam Miller out of Tyler Legacy was committed to Texas at one point. A lot of people, unless you're a recruiting junkie, the name Kendrick Law may not register. He was up at Captain Shreve High School. I went up to see him his senior year. I loved him as a prospect, but Texas was in the final 3 of that. Blake Gideon did a pretty good job with that recruitment. He just wanted to play wide receiver, and Alabama gave him a shot to play wide receiver. So that's what happened with that recruitment. But both very good players. Both I think have a pro future. All right, I'm trying to get to more stuff here for you guys. I'm going to go for a few more minutes. I would doubt those guys portal anywhere, by the way. Let's see. I'm trying to get to more of you guys' questions. Rudy Wayne, because some guys are coming in here at different times. Did we finish top 2 in recruiting? Yeah, that scenario to lock up a top 2 class is Michael Terry, Kellen Wiley, Javion Hilson. If Texas were to close with those 3 guys and nobody else, I do think they'd finish 2 in recruiting. Maybe they get beat at the wire and finish 3, but they're going to be right there. They could win at the wire and get one in a scenario with that. But where Justice Terry goes is going to be pretty impactful on the recruiting class. Let's see. So okay, here's a question here from David Harty. Right now, what are your thoughts on the OL? No love from other recruiting services. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I think John Mills is going to be very, very good SEC fit, very good guard if he's not a right tackle. I think he's got right tackle measurables and actual reactive quickness, foot quickness, but he's going to have to do that at the next level. I mean, the colleges aren't even sure on that yet. He'll get, when they recruit him, Texas is going to get, they'll put him out there and see what he does, see how he reacts to a Trey Moore and a Colin Simmons and all those guys coming off, Smith or Rogue, all those guys coming off the edge, rep after rep after rep against him to see what he does, body quickness, reactive quickness wise, with his feet, his eyes, and his hands. But he's got the measurables. But if he kicks in the guard, I think John Mills is going to be a tremendous football player. I think Devin Coleman has a lot of upside, could be a center guard. He could play center. Jordan Coleman, a lot of natural power. He's a 600-plus squatter. I do think the offensive line class for Texas is undervalued. Nick Brooks, and I'm not saying that because I cover it. I'm just always real with people. Nick Brooks, a lot of upside. He could play tackle. He's proven that this year to me. His body's not even close to where it's going to be in time. So he's got the frame. He's got the feet. He's got the punch power. I think he's got a lot of the skill set to play a tackle. I'm not sure which side, probably a right. I think he's got a chance to do it. Then with Jackson Christian, I could see him being a more physical version of Hayden Connor, but we'll see what happens down the line. I think they have a solid class to develop. Obviously, if you could win out and upset Oklahoma and A&M for Fasusi, then you have elite tackle as well in that group. But I think these five guys committed right now they're all good fits in the SEC and for what Texas does. So Jackson Christian, tackle or guard, I think Jackson Christian's a guard all the way. But that's just my opinion there. Super chat here from Keith Davis. Happy Thanksgiving and thank you. Same to you, Keith Davis. Thank you very much. And then Q asked this one. Thanks for taking the time to answer all the questions. Seems like all sports are cooking right now on the recruiting trail. Have you seen anything like this before? The only time I have is the kind of the golden age, right? When Houston Street, they won title in baseball, shortly won the title after in football, went to the Final Four in basketball. Texas was really cooking in the three big sports at that time. They're recruiting at an extremely high level. Look, people forget where basketball was at one time when Rick Barnes had it going at Texas. You had TJ Ford who won the Naismith. That's the basketball Heisman. Then they go to the Final Four, go to the Sweet 16 year after that, come back and they go to an Elite Eight with LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, they were turning out lottery picks. National award winners. Kevin Durant came in, won the Naismith Player of the Year. Texas had two, essentially the same thing as Heisman winners on the basketball side. So that little era right there was unbelievable for baseball, football, and basketball recruiting. But we'll see. We'll see how this all goes. Jim Schlossnagel's absolutely crushing it in baseball right now. Basketball, the game's changed because high school recruiting, you don't sign as many big classes. You're going to go portal more so than high school recruiting. So college basketball's changed a little bit as far as talking about high school recruiting. I mean, you might have a 2 or 3 man class max at Texas in high school basketball at this point. That's where things are seeming to be headed. And then you're going to build out that team from the portal. So basketball recruiting is a little different right now. Justin Yarborough, with everyone in the class, who are still recruiting, that's the best chance to make an impact next year. Best chance to make an impact. A lot of that's going to depend on who goes pro. I mean, like if a Trey Moore came back, then obviously that's a lot of snaps that have to be eaten up by somebody, right? Barron Sorrell is going to go pro. Obviously, he's a senior, but does Trey Moore as well, because that would offer up a lot of snaps at the edge positions. I do think, like, I'll say this, of guys committed, normally I wouldn't be high on interior defensive linemen playing early. I think you could see Myron Charles or Sharma play more snaps than like an Alex January has. I'm not saying that makes them better prospects, just the way things are set up. Now Texas will go to the portal. They'll fill from the portal. But I think both of those guys are really big frame guys. coming out of high school. They're both early enrollees, and their bodies are probably going to take off pretty quickly. And I think both those guys may play a little bit more than are anticipated. The other guys, I think Kellen Wiley needs some time development-wise if he goes to Texas. Michael Terry he's an interesting prospect because could you play him in pony package? Could you play him as in the pony package as a running back, like a Juan Davis, right? But again, it takes time to be as physical as a Juan Davis in blocking if you do some things like that with him. It's easy to play in the pony package at running back if you pick up the scheme. But the other parts are very hard. It's a very physical game. And so I think he would have a chance to maybe have a little impact for Texas if Michael Terry chooses Texas. But the question is kind of in what role. Drew Lockhart, great question. How's Lance Jackson's season going? He's an early enrollee. He is an early enrollee, and he's a monster. You can see a lot of stuff. There's an Instagram. There's a guys who do a great job called Texarkana Game Day. They stream the high school games live up there. They have some pretty cool shows. They do. I met those guys when I was at Pleasant Grove the day I was there to see Lance. They do a really good job. If you go to Texarkana Game Day Instagram, they post a lot of cuts of Lance Jackson, and he has made so many athletic plays this year. He's making plays at tight end, in the red zone, over the middle, contested catches, then runs. Obviously makes his plays off the edge at defensive end, but I think he is an elite prospect. He is one of the top prospects in the country. And I don't say this lightly, and I'm not saying he's going to be a gold jacket Hall of Fame player. He's got some of the same juice that Julius Peppers did as an athlete at that size. And I'm not saying he's going to be that player, okay? But you guys always ask for comparisons. I think he's got that frame, and I think he's got similar athletic ability. So we'll see what happens with Lance Jackson long term. I think he's a tremendous prospect. And they got a huge game, arguably the biggest game in the state this week. They're playing Carthage. And Scott Surratt in the best program in Texas high school football of the last 15 years. They get their crack at the Carthage Bulldogs, and maybe the only thing stopping Carthage from winning another state title if Jet Surratt stays healthy. Carthage's only loss this year. Jet Surratt got hurt before the game and couldn't even move. And that's why they lost to Kilgore. After that, it's been blowout city. But a big game coming up there. Both of them, Pleasant Grove beat Gilmer pretty good earlier this year. So it's going to be a hell of a game if you live in East Texas. All right. Woodcrest asked this. If Texas flips Facetious, Turrentine still heavily interested. I think Turrentine is always going to have interest in Texas. He has a sister that's attending Texas, a sister that attends Huston-Tillotson. He's been on campus at Texas more than any other college. Kyle Flood's done a really good job in that recruitment. I think so. I think Texas is always going to be there for Turrentine. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot right now. We'll see what happens in January there. Let's see anything else. I'm going to take 2 or 3 more questions here. Ryan Nelson asked, I'll get that the super chat in a second. Lockett or French as freshman starters by end of the year? It's a really good question. I would say, and I'm not taking anything away from Lockett's a 50-50 ball winner that you need in the SEC against these taller, longer limbed athletes. I think he's getting deceptively faster. And I expect him to get faster in a college strength and conditioning program as well. He's a young senior. If you see him in person, he's not even close to being maxed out physically. He's got those 11-inch mints, that 80-inch wingspan. He's gonna make some plays, I think. Jamie French, I think, is pretty far ahead in the game. I would expect him to pick up a scheme pretty quick. He's multiple. You can do different things with him. I wouldn't shock me if Jamie French, assuming he signs with Texas next Wednesday, comes in January. It wouldn't shock me if he didn't become a part of a wide receiver rotation as a freshman. I think he's that good. I really do think he's that good. I think he's that motivated, and I think he's got a pretty high level of football intelligence there. He's really good after the catch, by the way. He does remind me of A.D. Mitchell coming out of high school. Joe Z said UConn just lost again, Jerry. Hey, did they get out of that with a tech? But we'll see. That was an ugly tech for Hurley yesterday. Jeff, Leah Chavez update. I'm just going to give my pure thoughts on this, okay? If she was a football player and ranked number 1 in the country, people would be fascinated by this recruitment. but it's a women's basketball player, but the number one high school recruit in the country, averaging, I think, 37, 38 a game this year. On pace for another 185 made threes in a high school season, which is absolutely ridiculous. She'll hold almost every record in that. If I'm Texas Tech, I don't like the fact that she didn't sign early. But that to me is, if you wanted to be at Tech, and the fan base would get behind you for your senior year, it would be magical for her in playing high school ball in Lubbock. To me, that's in doing this for years. That if I'm Tech, I don't like that she didn't make a decision early. She's always been a Nike kid, plays on the Nike circuit, always has the Nike shoes on, visited 4 Nike schools, and then Texas Tech, who's Adidas. That's a tough one for, I think, that Tech has to overcome, even though the NIL part of it and being from Lubbock, the hometown part of it, she's always put the Nikes on. She's always played for Nike, and there will be some sort of deal with Nike, I think, long-term with her. And I'm not her agent. I'm not claiming to be, but it's a fascinating recruitment. And then within Nike, she visited Texas and LSU's out, but Texas and LSU, Nike, and the Oklahoma and UCLA are Jumpman within Nike, Jordan brand, obviously. Could that help in Oklahoma? Is there something there from an NIL perspective? Fascinating recruitment. I think there's been some confidence on the Texas side. If I'm Texas Tech, I personally don't feel great about it since she didn't sign early. That doesn't mean she can't pick Tech at the end of the day, but that just would have been if you'd have picked Tech early, had the whole city of Lubbock behind you your senior year, everything that came with it. I think if you wanted to go to Tech, that would have been the call you made earlier in November. But that's just me, one opinion. Jason Havlinski, Kilgore's defense is legit. I would agree with that. Really good team. Look, the Sanders kid going, I believe, to Michigan, really good player. His dad was a stud at TCU. All those East Texas teams, those teams in that region, if you don't live out there, if you're ever out there, that's some of the best Friday night football in the country. I'm not saying they're as talented as Duncanville, don't get me wrong, but if you can go to a Carthage game against Gilmore's, have a Pleasant Grove against a Gilmer, it's a different type of setting. It's some of the best high school football in the country. And, if I've always said, if I had one high school game left to go to, and I did grow up part of my time in East Texas, it would be Lufkin at Longview. I mean, I think that game is, from a high school perspective, every one I've ever been to is off the charts. The Lobo Den in Longview, the way it's set in the little bowl, that Longview Lufkin game is unbelievable to me. Donald Britt says, legal battle so colleges can't commit athletes to Adidas. Do you think, Jameson Washington asked, do you think Texas is on the verge of flipping a DB? We'll have to see on that. I'm not ready to jump there yet, but I do think that they will still be going after guys. So we got a couple of minutes here. Let me see if Jack Burton has a good question here. Max Wright out of Melissa. Recent offers, Baylor, UCS, San Diego State, and Texas. Is he coming to Texas? He was at the Texas game against Kentucky. Big, good-looking kid now. Moved over from Plano West to Melissa this year. Good-looking kid. I think it'll be interesting to see where Kyle Flood goes at 2026 in the offensive line class. 5 guys in 2025. If it stays there, I think you go 5 again in 2026. It's a great crop in state. I mean, it's a tremendous class of offensive linemen. Turntine has a committable offer. Toa Toa has a committable offer. Nicholas Robertson, the guard out of Klein, who was at the Kentucky game, definitely has a committable offer. Where it goes from there, if Texas were to win those, be interesting to see. I think it's a 2 or 3 tackle class and probably a 2 interior class. But we'll see where Kyle Flood takes that class. But it's a tremendous year in state on the offensive line. So there's going to be decisions to be made there by Texas and at Texas A&M. Who both those schools, they're going to have to make some tough decisions on the offensive line because it's loaded. Roger G, we're going to end with this one. I love KJ Lacey. But hypothetically, if we'd have landed Keelan Russell, we'd be the number one class. Yeah, look, I would say this about KJ Lacey. KJ Lacey is a playmaker. He's a point guard, grew up a point guard that obviously is now a quarterback. He's got that point guard vision, that point guard feel, that point guard playmaking to him. I think he has a chance to be a quality player. I really do. I think he's got all the stuff you want to have in a quarterback. And look, the thing about quarterback recruiting is these guys, These guys commit so early now at the quarterback position. I think just go look how many 2026 guys already committed. These quarterbacks commit so early. These colleges are making decisions on these quarterbacks so early that it's always going to lead to some second guessing because when these guys are committing before they play a game their junior year, I mean, that's 2 full years of high school football before they enroll as midterm guys, which KJ Lacey is. So that's always, because those guys commit early, it's always going to lead it's always going to lead to more of the questions about the quarterback positions. LL, you're the first to talk about Russell and Somer. Yeah, look, I'll say this about Keelan Russell. I compliment all the guys I see that I like. I was at Duncanville was before his junior year. And they had a pretty spirited practice, and Kendall Browse was there. Bobby Petrino was at A&M and offered him that day, by the way. And there were some, Alex January, Colin Simmons, they could get after you in practice. And I love Keelan Russell's poise. Everybody knows he's a good athlete. I love this poise because it was a physical practice, and Colin Simmons was screaming off the edge in practice, and Alex January was collapsing the pocket, and they had a middle linebacker that would absolutely knock your helmet off. But I love the way his poise, and I love the way he changed ball speeds, and I love the way that he would look off the safety at an early age. I think he's got it up here to play the position. Really, really good player. And one thing I always said about Duncanville was if they ever got a high-level, natural passing quarterback, Jaquindon Jackson, great competitor. They might have won state if he didn't tear up his knee in that, I think it was state semi-regional final game. But if they ever got a kid like, not a Keelan Russell 5-star, but a guy who's a really talented passer with the speed and skill they have there, nobody was going to beat Duncanville. Now, they lost to DeSoto last year, but they were going to win multiple state titles. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. And yes, he was committed to SMU, and then that changed real fast. Yes, it did. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it. I really appreciate everybody. We're going to be back for the 7 p.m. Live stream tonight. Rod Babers, CJ Vogel. I might join in for a few minutes as well. But if any more recruiting questions, bring them tonight at 7 and we'll get them answered for you. And thanks for joining in. Thanks to Mark Saunders for being the sole sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown, and hook 'em, guys.